The city was alive. A vibrant pulse throbbed beneath its skin, a rhythm of footsteps and laughter, of music and shouts. But beneath that familiar symphony, a new sound was emerging. A whisper, a murmur. It snaked its way through the bustling streets, clinging to the shadows, growing louder with each passing night. Fear, stories of disappearances, of skilled fighters vanishing without a trace. A predator stalked the night. The whispers evolved into a chorus of fear as the first body was discovered. The once proud warrior lay broken, a testament to unimaginable brutality. The police, faces drawn and grim, offered little in the way of answers. The only clue, a calling card as macabre as it was perplexing. A single black feather. The city now cowered under the weight of an unknown threat. Master Jian, they called him, a legend in the city's underground fighting rings, renowned for his lightning-fast reflexes and unmatched skill in the art of Wing Chun. He was a phantom, a whisper of movement, untouchable, unbeatable, until now. They found him in the heart of his own dojo, the place that had been his sanctuary, his fortress. Now it was his tomb. His death was a message. No one was safe. Daniel Iron Fist Murphy, a name whispered with a mixture of awe and fear in the city's underground fight clubs, was a force of nature. A heavyweight boxer with a physique sculpted from granite and a right jab that could knock a man out cold. He thrived in the brutal ballet of the ring, the clang of metal, the thud of leather against flesh, the roar of the crowd, a symphony of chaos that fueled his every move. The ring was his domain, a place where fear dared not tread. But tonight a different kind of fight awaited him. A fight that would test him in ways he could never have imagined. A fight for his life. His steps, usually heavy and sure, felt lighter, quicker, as if his body sensed a threat his mind had yet to register. The alleyway was shrouded in darkness, the stench of stale urine and rotting garbage assaulting his nostrils. Daniel quickened his pace, his hand instinctively reaching for the keys in his pocket. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end, a primal warning that sent a shiver down his spine. He was being watched. He spun around, his fists raised, his eyes scanning the darkness. The alley was empty, the silence broken only by the distant rumble of traffic. He chided himself for his paranoia. As he turned to continue his walk, a flicker of movement at the edge of his vision caught his eye. A shadow, detaching itself from the darkness, seemed to melt into the wall of the building across from him. He wasn't alone. The shadow moved again, this time stepping forward, emerging from the darkness like a creature of the night. The faint glow of a streetlight illuminated the figure, revealing a towering silhouette, clad in what appeared to be a long, dark coat. But it was the mask that sent a jolt of terror through Daniel's veins. A grotesque, beaked mask, fashioned to resemble the head of a vulture, stared back at him. The Vulture, as the newspapers had dubbed him, was no ordinary opponent. The Vulture savoured the fear that rolled off his prey. He was a hunter, and these martial artists, these self-proclaimed masters of combat, were his chosen quarry. Each carefully orchestrated kill was a masterpiece, a symphony of violence conducted with brutal precision. He studied his victims, learned their strengths, their weaknesses, their deepest fears. He knew their every move before they made it, could predict their every counterattack. He was always one step ahead, a phantom in the night, a whisper of death that followed them like a curse. He craved the thrill of the hunt, the adrenaline rush of the kill. He would be the Vulture. News of the Vulture's latest victim spread through the city's underbelly like wildfire. The Iron Fist silenced, the champion dethroned. The fear that had been simmering beneath the surface boiled over, spilling into the streets, seeping into the very foundation of the city. In the dimly lit backrooms of illegal fight clubs, whispers of the Vulture replaced the usual boasts and challenges. Fighters, once eager to prove their mettle, now eyed each other with suspicion, their movements hesitant, their eyes darting nervously towards the shadows. The thrill of the fight had been replaced by the cold grip of fear. Detective Inspector Davies, a man hardened by years of chasing shadows in the city's darkest corners, stared at the case files spread out on his desk. Each file represented a victim, each one a master of their craft, each one brutally slain. The only connection, the single black feather left on each body. The pressure was mounting. The media was having a field day. The public was demanding answers, and the higher-ups were breathing down his neck. But Davies was a man who thrived under pressure. He had a reputation for cracking the toughest cases, and he wasn't about to let this one break him. He would set a trap, a steel trap baited with fear and vengeance. The air crackled with anticipation. A lone figure moved through the darkened warehouse, their limbs a blur of motion as they practiced ancient kata. This was Sarah, a rising star in the world of mixed martial arts. She was known for her speed, her agility, and her ferocious fighting spirit. But tonight, her usual confidence was tinged with a fear she couldn't quite shake. The Vulture had taken everything from her. She had dedicated herself to finding his killer, to bringing him to justice. Their dance with death was about to begin. Sarah found the note at her usual training spot, a secluded clearing in the heart of the city park. The sight of the black feather sent a chill down her spine, a visceral reaction she couldn't suppress. The Vulture was playing with her, toying with her, letting her know that she was always in his sights. Anger surged through her, hot and fierce, momentarily eclipsing the fear that threatened to consume her. He wanted a challenge? He wanted a fight? She would give him one he wouldn't soon forget. She needed a plan, a way to even the odds. She would make him come to her on her terms. The city became their battleground, a concrete jungle where predator and prey stalked each other through a maze of dimly lit streets and deserted alleyways. The Vulture left his mark, a black feather, at various locations around the city, taunting Sarah, leading her on a deadly game of cat and mouse. Each location held a clue, a piece of the puzzle that Sarah meticulously pieced together. He was studying her, learning her habits, exploiting her vulnerabilities. Fear was a constant companion, but so was determination. The more the Vulture tried to break her, the more resolute she became. She wouldn't let him win. Desperate for answers, Sarah sought out the one person she knew who might understand the mind of a predator like the Vulture. Retired Detective Inspector Davies, his face etched with the scars of countless battles fought in the city's underbelly, listened intently as Sarah recounted her story. Davies, though retired, had never truly left the force behind. The Vulture case had haunted him. The unsolved murders a constant reminder of his own mortality. He saw in Sarah a reflection of his younger self, the burning desire for justice, the unwavering commitment to stopping evil no matter the cost. He shared his insights, his knowledge of criminal minds, the strategies he had used to hunt down the city's most dangerous predators. She would face the vulture, even if it meant staring death in the face. Following Davies's advice, Sarah devised a plan, a dangerous gambit that would force the vulture's hand. She announced a public demonstration of her martial arts skills, a tribute to her fallen mentor, Master Jian. The location, the very same park where she had found the vulture's first chilling message. It was a risky move, but a calculated risk. She knew the vulture wouldn't resist seeing her vulnerability up close. He was a predator, drawn to fear and anticipation. News of Sarah's challenge spread, igniting fear and fascination. The park was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah stepped into the center of the arena, her heart pounding. She felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her, but she wouldn't let fear paralyze her. This was her chance to draw the vulture out and avenge her mentor. As she began her demonstration, she scanned the crowd. Little did she know, the vulture was hidden in plain sight. The trap was set, the prey had entered the lion's den, and the hunt was about to begin. Sarah moved through a complex series of kicks and punches, her body a blur of motion. The air crackled with energy, each movement precise, deadly. She fought as if possessed, her grief and rage finding an outlet in the fluidity of her form. Each strike was a prayer, a promise whispered to the memory of Master Jian. The crowd, at first apprehensive, was captivated. They had heard the whispers, the rumors of the vulture, but here in this display of controlled fury, they saw something else. Courage, defiance, a refusal to be ruled by fear. But Sarah's senses were on high alert. Even as her body moved with practiced grace, her eyes scanned the faces in the crowd, searching for a flicker of recognition, a telltale sign that would betray the predator in their midst. The air itself seemed to hum with tension, thick with unspoken menace. Her gaze fell on a figure standing near the back of the crowd. He was tall, imposing, his face concealed by the shadow of a hooded sweatshirt, but there was something about his stance, the way he seemed to melt into the shadows, that sent a shiver down her spine. The figure met her gaze, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. He raised his hand, slowly, deliberately, and held up a single black feather. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that echoed through the park. The air grew heavy, the silence punctuated by the frantic thump of Sarah's heart. He moved then, a swift, almost predatory glide through the parting crowd. Panic rippled outwards, screams erupting as people scrambled to get out of his path. But Sarah stood her ground, her body coiled tight, every muscle tensed, ready to spring. The spotlight caught his face as he approached, illuminating the grotesque mask that had haunted her nightmares. The vulture. He was even more imposing in person, his size and strength amplified by the aura of menace that clung to him like a shroud. For a moment their eyes met, predator and prey locked in a silent battle of wills. The air crackled with anticipation, the silence broken only by the distant wail of a siren. The game had changed. This was no longer a demonstration, a performance. This was a fight for survival. "You put on a good show, little bird." The vulture's voice, a low, gravelly rumble, sent chills down her spine. But the real performance is about to begin. He circled her slowly, his movements almost languid, belying the raw power that radiated from him. Sarah pivoted, mirroring his movements, her eyes never leaving his. "You took something from me," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "My teacher, my friend." The vulture chuckled, a harsh, grating sound. He was weak, just like the others. "You're wrong," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength. "He was a good man, and I won't let you get away with what you did." The vulture stopped circling, his head tilted to one side, as if considering her words. Then he smiled, a slow, cruel stretching of his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "Get away with it?" he echoed, his voice dripping with amusement. "Little bird, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." He reached up, his gloved hand gripping the edge of his mask. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath as the vulture slowly, deliberately lifted the mask, revealing